Hi there, my name is Memo, this is my channel Houseplanty Goodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me. I'm talking obviously about tropical houseplants, and possibly, considering that you're watching a video like this might also be one of your passions. So today's topic that I want to talk about is a plant that struggled to begin with me, and it wasn't because of where I bought it. It was more about the care conditions that I was giving it, and it is, and let me bring it up, it's a big plant, so hopefully I'll try to get most of it in the frame. If not, I will move it around so you can see it a bit clearer. The plant I want to talk about today, you might be able to see right here next to me, and you can see how large it's become now. This is the Philodendron Splendid, or otherwise it's the hybrid between a Philodendron melanochrysum and a Philodendron varicosum. So that's one of the newest leaves that's coming in, and it's quite large. I think the largest leaf I had previously was this one, and you can see kind of a Caelin head test. They are quite large leaves, and this is also another newly emerging leaf, and that has become because, as previous videos have mentioned, I've released the apical dominance. So what I did with this plant is I had this plant, and as I mentioned, it was getting some root rot because of how I was caring for it, and I had to chop it back pretty much down to nothing. Let me see if I can find the first leaf that it had has dropped off since, but this, and let me bring it in a bit closer, you can see how janky that leaf is the second leaf that came with. Took the top off, I propagated it into another smaller plant, and I will show you that in a minute. But it has, to say it's bounced back would be a bit of an understatement, considering quite how large it is. You might also be able to see that I had a bit of a sphagnum moss collar right at the bottom, and that was mainly because when I was rooting it out, I had left quite a few nodes there, so it kind of rooted out from most of the nodes. Annoyingly enough, it didn't root out properly on the lowest nodes, but it did have some considerable roots on the higher nodes. So in order to not overwhelm it with too much soil, I kind of put it in a net pot in a light, airy, aroid soil mix, and I kind of just put some sphagnum around those upper roots just to kind of give it a bit of a legs up when I was trying to root it out. Arguably at this point it's probably not needed as much, but I don't want to disturb it. It seems really happy, and I just kind of want to let it be. It is getting considerable aerial roots, and hopefully that is getting picked up by the camera, and you might be able to see there, and there. The other thing to kind of note is if you look at the back side of the leaves, that's where the varicosum genetics are coming in. You get that kind of slight blush. You don't get the full red that you would get with the varicosum, and obviously the velvetyness and the kind of longer leaves it's getting from the melanochrysum. And again, I mean, even the varicosum has got velvety kind of shiny leaves. This is not as shiny as you would get from varicosum. It's a bit more muted like you would get from a melanochrysum. But let's talk care about this plant. So I'm just going to put it down because it's getting a bit heavy in my hand. So the care for that plant is I will water it when the soil is almost dry, not when it goes fully dry. That's roughly how I got I think anyway, that's how I got the root rot the first time around. I thought this was more tolerant to fully drying out, and that it almost wanted it and then to get fully watered. No. And to be fair, since then I've realized that both my melanochrysum and my varicosum are plants that, in the Philodendron family, that they don't generally like going bone dry and then getting watered. You'll get pest damage, you'll get edema in the leaves. The only true Philodendron that I've found really does need to fully dry out and then get drenched is the trailing Philodendron, or the Philodendron hederaceum, the heart leaf Philodendron, and that's quite a common Philodendron that you can find in most garden centers and plant stores as well. Same thing with the micans, but the micans, because it's slightly more velvety, again, it leans more towards what these other plants want, which is just water it just before it goes dry, and then it will be happy. I will pick up now the propagation of the top part of the stem, which I cut out. To essentially, the reason why I did that is You saw that big plant. I only left one leaf on there, but quite a bit of stem because it had no roots, just to give it enough energy to be able to root out and then push out more leaves. And you can see the result of that. So I didn't want to stress it by having too much plant matter to try to support when it didn't have any roots. And let me show you the smaller propagation, which is also doing quite well. So the smaller propagation of that plant is here. You can see one of the original leaves is just about to go now. It's yellowing and it's kind of absorbing back into the plant, and then I will get rid of it. And you might be able to see me constantly looking at this plant. It's summertime, so I'm always looking out for pests, because being that this is half varicosum, it can be a spider mite magnet. So always a good thing to look at it, basically. This, you might be able to see, was one of its first new leaves, then this, then this, then this. And as you can see, they're getting larger, and there's a new leaf that you might be able to see there that is just about to emerge. And I'm assuming that's going to be even larger than this leaf as well. So this one is in terracotta. When I first potted it up, because it had so little roots, it was only half full with soil. That will give you an indication, because there is this kind of notion that a lot of philodendrons have got very, very chunky roots. I haven't always found that to be the case. The gloriosum, for instance, they're not fine. They're not like begonia roots. They're almost hair-like, but they're not as chunky as you might get with a Monstera deliciosa or even like a Phalaenopsis orchid, which are very, very thick roots. These have got slightly thinner roots, so they don't need quite as much soil around them, essentially. So bear that in mind. But yeah, watering for most of these plants, as I said, I'll wait until it goes between that moist and dry, and then I'll drench them. Fertilizing, I would say every second or third watering right now in the summer. And in terms of humidity, I think this should do okay in a household environment. In my experience, both the varicosum separately and the melanochrysum separately did okay in my household environment. And I caveat that heavily because I'm based in the UK. So even when the heating is on, my house was never below 50% humidity. So they did okay in that. Now, if you're in a very dry and arid kind of location, or your heating means that your humidity doesn't ever go up above 30%, or you've got air cons going all the time as well, which are also drying the air in the summertime, I don't know. But for regular English household humidity, this does, I would hazard a guess, would do well. As I said, I've not tried this specific plant, but the two parent plants that this was hybridized from, at least in my care, did really well in a household humidity, so possibly. But I think that's everything I wanted to say for this video. If you've got any questions, comments, as always, do drop them down below. I know this is a plant that a lot of people want to try out and they want to get. I would full-heartedly recommend this. Don't take the fact that I had a bit of root rot because of something stupid that I did to it. As long as you kind of do proper care to this plant, it should reward you with some nice big long leaves really, really quickly. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.